Many of us have heard the name Medusa, but have you heard the Greek myth about her? Tonight, we will hear the story of the prince with the golden hair, Perseus, the Greek demigod who slayed the Gorgon, Medusa. My name is Jess, and this is the Yes Tales Story Channel. I'm here to tell you stories from all over the world. Some famous, some forgotten. And when the story finishes, the sound of the fire keeps playing, helping you fall into a soothing sleep. If you want to hear more myths and legends, make sure you subscribe and leave a like. But for now, make sure you're warm and snug. Clear your mind from any worries. Take a deep breath. Let's begin. One fine morning, in those days of long, long ago, a beautiful baby boy was born in a small room at the top of a high tower. That's a strange birthplace for a prince, you might think. But the fact is that the whole matter was a closed secret. The poor princess of Argos had been imprisoned in the tower for months by her own father, King Acrisius. The king had recently visited an oracle to ask if he would ever have a son, and the oracle had answered, "You will never have a son, but your daughter will, and her son will be the cause of your death." To avoid this prophecy, he built a huge tower out of bronze, with a single chamber and no doors nor windows, and imprisoned the princess to ensure that she would never have any children at all. But the princess, whose name was Danae, was one of the most beautiful women in the world, and rumours of her beauty reached far and wide. One day, Zeus, the ruler of the sky and Mount Olympus, heard of her beauty. The god of thunder got very intrigued and wished to see her. So he flew to Argos and dropped straight down onto the roof of the tower, and hidden in a shower of rain, with drops like sparkling fragments of gold, he trickled his way into her chamber. Zeus and Danae fell madly in love, and the golden drops of rain fell all around Danae, like the most beautiful wedding veil. And from that visit, a child was born. He was such a beautiful baby boy, with hair as golden as the gold raindrops, olive skin and blue eyes, and his mother named him Perseus. When the king heard that he had a grandson, he realized this must be the work of an immortal. So to avoid the wrath of the gods, he decided to send the poor boy straight out of the kingdom without delay. He had a large wooden chest made and launched it onto the waters of the bay, where it rocked up and down. Then he ordered his guards to bring the princess and the baby to the beach, where he locked them in the chest and sent them floating out to sea. Danae held her baby tightly in her arms as the chest swung up and down on the waves. But Zeus watched over them from Mount Olympus and asked Poseidon, the god of the sea, to keep them safe. They sailed on until the land they had left was long out of sight. But in front of them rose the blue mountains of another country. The chest was carried by the tide right up to the shore, where a big wave lifted it gently and placed it on the sandy beaches on the island of Seriphos, where it was soon discovered by a fisherman. The fisherman's name was Dictys, and he had never seen anyone as lovely as Danae. He gave her dry clothes and nice food and a room in his own cottage to live in, and he raised Perseus like his own, teaching him to fish, swim, and to live with honour. Dictys' brother, King Polydectes, who had often seen him and his mother, was also taken by Danae's beauty and begged her to become his queen. But Danae refused indignantly. The king kept continuing his unwanted advances, and young Perseus, who could see his mother's frustration, sprang to her side and declared that no one, king nor courtier, should trouble Danae as long as he was there to protect her. So the king thought up a plan to send Perseus far away, so far that he would never return. One day, King Polydectes announced a grand feast where each guest was asked to bring him a gift, the finest horse they possessed, for he planned to marry a princess from a faraway land. But Perseus, who was poor, had no horse to give. And when the king mocked him for it, Perseus boldly said, "I will bring you anything you ask, even the head of the most feared monster in the world, Medusa." A hush fell over the court, for Medusa was one of the three sisters called Gorgons, who lived beyond the edge of the known world, past deserts and oceans, in a place where night never ended, and very few knew how to get there. All three sisters were terrible, with tusks like boars, hands of bronze, and strong bat wings made of gold. Two of them were immortal, but Medusa, once a beautiful maiden, had been born a mortal. She had a coil of serpents growing out of her head instead of hair, and one look at her strange, horrid face would instantly turn you into stone. How could any human being possibly kill her and walk away with her head? The king accepted this offer, thinking it was a sure way to get rid of him. But Perseus was not afraid. He set out on his impossible quest and wandered down to the seashore, to the very spot where, years ago, he had arrived as a little baby. As he stood there, the sky darkened, and suddenly there was a sound of wings and a lovely bright light. He thought for a moment that two big stars might have fallen out of the sky. As his eyes got used to the light, he could see Athena and Hermes standing next to him. They told Perseus that he was the son of Zeus, and that they were his half-brother and sister, and that all the gods on Mount Olympus had taken an interest in him. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, gave him a magical pouch, stitched by divine hands, that would hold something dangerous without ever letting it be seen. She also gave him her bronze shield, bright as a looking glass. "You will need more than courage to face the Gorgon," she said. "Don't look directly at her. Use this to see her reflection." Hermes, the messenger god, gave him a curved sword, capable of cutting through anything. And then he took off his winged sandals and used golden straps to tie them to Perseus' feet. He also placed a dark helmet on his head, with cloudy plumes that were black as the night sky. "This once belonged to Hades," they told him, "the god of the underworld. When you wear it, no one will see you, not even the gods." Then they bade him good luck and goodbye, and told him to fly away on Hermes' wings to the land of the Grey, the three sisters of the Gorgons, who hold the secret of where the terrible monsters live. So with the helmet on his head, the wings on his feet, and the shield buckled to his arm, Perseus sprang lightly onto the waves of the sea and flew along the glimmering water towards the land of the Grey. The country he arrived at was misty and dark, and Perseus felt a sting of sadness and loneliness when he landed on a sharp rock and ran along the cliffs in a cold, thick fog. Before long, he could hear a low muttering sound, as if a group of old women were talking to each other, none of whom had any teeth. Perseus realized that he must be near the Grey, for he'd been told that they only had one eye and one tooth between the three of them. So in order to see anything, they had to borrow the eye from one another, and in order to eat anything, they had to borrow the tooth. He walked up to where he heard the sound of talking and waited silently in the shadows as the sisters quarrelled about which one of them should have the eye for the next half hour. One of them was holding it tightly in her skinny fingers, and both the others were groping about, trying to get hold of it. Eventually, the old lady who held the eye agreed to part with it. She produced it from where she was hiding it under a cloak, and one of her sisters held out her trembling fingers for it. And just as they were changing hands, Perseus reached forward and took it. "Who has it?" one cried. "Where is it?" cried another. "I will return it," Perseus said kindly. "But first, you must tell me where to find the Gorgons." The sisters muttered and hissed, but they were helpless without their eye. So they told him what he needed to know: the path to the silent island where the Gorgons slept, at the very edge of the world. Perseus thanked them, returned the eye, and rose into the air on his winged sandals. The journey was long, and the land below gave way to sea, and then sky, and then to nothing at all. At last he saw the island, a silent stone graveyard, marked by the petrified forms of those who had fallen victim to Medusa's gaze. And in the centre of the island was the cave where the 3 Gorgons slept. Perseus crept into the cave backwards, careful not to look directly at the Gorgons. Instead, he watched them in the gleam of Athena's shield, held before him like a mirror. Medusa stirred in her sleep. Snakes coiled around her head, hissing softly. Quietly, steadily, Perseus raised the sword, and in one swift motion he brought it down. In that moment, 2 bright shapes sprang from her fallen body. One was Chrysaor, a warrior with a golden sword, and the other was Pegasus, a winged horse, white as moonlight. They soared into the sky and vanished. Perseus gently placed the Gorgon's head into the magical pouch, for even now it still held its dangerous power. But now the other 2 Gorgons had woken. They howled and shrieked, their wings thrashing in the air. Perseus quickly placed the helmet on his head and became invisible. They clawed at the cave walls, searching for the one who had stolen their sister. But they could not see him. He was already gone. When Perseus returned home, he found that Polydectes still troubled his mother, and there were rumors that he was planning to force her into marrying him. So she had taken refuge in the temple of Athena, where no one could harm her. Perseus walked into the king's hall without ceremony. His sandals made no sound on the stone. Polydectes sat on his throne, with all his courtiers gathered around him, laughing and feasting. The hall fell silent as they all laid eyes on him. "I have brought you what you asked for," he said gently. Polydectes sneered. "Well, go on, let's see it then," he answered. Perseus reached into the pouch and held up Medusa's head. And in that instant, the king and all his men turned to stone, frozen in a moment of surprise. Perseus returned the head to Athena, who set it in her shield, where it would protect others forever. He made Dictys king of Seriphos, and the people rejoiced. As for Perseus, He did not stay. With his mother by his side, he boarded a ship and sailed quietly back to Argos, the land of his birth. And what happened there, and how he was able to marry the most beautiful princess in the world, well, that's a tale for another night.